Hello YouTube, this is Yirmiyahu Weeps. I am going to be talking about how Peter goes to hell. It's actually 2nd Peter, the second letter of Peter, who I think of as Ehben, because Peter is a Greek term, comes from Petros, I think, and refers to a really wobbly flint rock that's unstable. And the Aramaic equivalent would have been Kepha, and the Hebrew equivalent would be Ehben. It means a rock, and actually I think it means something a little more stable than a wobbly flint rock that's not, that you can't trust. But, so his second letter, and when I say that he goes to hell, I mean that he goes to chapter 2, verse 4. Now, I'm going to be reading that in context, so I'm going to start out in the beginning of the chapter, but I just want to warn you, when I start out in the beginning of the chapter, it doesn't start as the beginning of a chapter, it starts out mid-thought. So, I'm not going to go back to the previous thought, because the verse that I'm getting to starts out mid-thought. So anyways, chapter 2 starts out mid-thought, verse 1 reads as such. But false spokesmen, and when I say spokesman, that's coming from the Hebrew nebayim, which means to pour forth, those who pour forth, and it's referring to those who pour forth the messages of Yahweh, or Yahweh, as I understand his name to be pronounced, but I think its pronunciation is not really as big an issue as it is what his name actually means, his meaning and his character and his identity. He is the self-existent one, the one who exists, independent of anybody or anything else. Going on. False nebayim, false spokesmen, arose among the people, just as there will be false teachers among you. Oh, by the way, I'm reading out of the Net Bible version. You can find that online, the Net Bible. These false teachers will infiltrate your midst with destructive heresies, or destructive opinions or viewpoints. Destructive heresies or opinions or viewpoints, even to the point of denying the master who bought them. As a result, they will bring swift destruction on themselves, and many will follow their debauched lifestyles. Let's see what that actually says. Literally, licentiousness or sensualities or debaucheries. I can't remember exactly what debauch means, but it's basically, from what I remember, it's not living uprightly. Because of these false teachers, the way of truth will be slandered, or blasphemed, or reviled, or treated with contempt. And in their greed, they will exploit you with deceptive words. Their condemnation, pronounced long ago, is not sitting idly by. Their destruction is not asleep. So it's saying it's going to happen. So these false teachers, false spokesmen of Yahweh, denying the master who bought them. The master, who's the master who bought them? Who is the master of all things? Yahweh, our creator, is the master of all things. And as a result of doing this, as a result of bringing in their destructive opinions or viewpoints, denying Yahweh, they're bringing swift destruction on themselves, and many will follow their debauched lifestyles, their debaucheries, licentiousness, their Torahlessness, their way of living that denies Torah. Lawlessness, basically. And that the way of truth, which would be the way of Yahweh, will be slandered or treated with contempt because of them. Which I think that you can see happening, that you see people that they're denying the way of Yahweh and his Torah, his instructions, and through their teachings that other people treat them with contempt. I don't know if you've ever gone to seen any churches or people that profess the Creator that treat his instructions with contempt, and that other people want nothing to do with them because of that. Anyways, going on. verse 4. In the Net Bible it says this: "For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but threw them into hell and locked them up in chains in utter darkness, to be kept until judgment." And that's the end of the verse, even though it's not the end of the thought or the sentence. I'll go on with verse 5. "And if he did not spare the ancient world, but did protect Noah," which I think would actually be in English, "protected Noah, a herald of righteousness, along with 7 others, when God brought a flood on an ungodly world." Now I will go to my version of chapter 2, verse 4. Well, no, I'll comment really quick about that hell. It says hell. Threw them into hell. So, makes you kind of wonder, who all's there? Is there anybody there waiting for them? Or were they the first ones there and they're waiting for other people? Well, let's find out. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. This is my understanding of what the verse actually says. "Because if Yahweh of Elohim didn't spare the messengers," referring to angelic messengers, referring to non-human messengers, referring to the Ruach, the breath or wind messengers, the messengers that are not detectable by our 5 senses. "Didn't spare the messengers that missed the mark being the goal of Yahweh and his ways. Yahweh is the ultimate goal, so if they missed the mark, they weren't on target, they were off target by doing wrong and doing terrible things. So because if Yahweh of Elohim, and I put Yahweh of Elohim because in the Brit Hadashah New Testament, New Covenant, a lot of times it won't specify which term is being used, whether it's Yahweh or Elohim. I know that from my understanding, there's placeholders that are used to indicate that it's Yahweh, but I'm not sure where all of those placeholders are. So I know that it's the Greek term is referring either to Yahweh or Elohim. I'm just not sure which, so when it seems appropriate, I just put Yahweh of Elohim. Because really, Yahweh of Elohim means Yahweh of power and authority. Going on, "Because if Yahweh of Elohim didn't spare the messengers that missed the mark, but cast them down to the depths of abyss, handing them over to chains or pits of darkness, to be reserved for judgment or decision." Now, that depths of abyss is actually Tartaru, and the word Tartaru means to throw down to Tartarus. So that what the Net Bible and other versions have translated to hell is actually Tartaru, and it's a verb, and it means to throw down to Tartarus. Now, Tartarus, from the best I can understand, was in Greek mythology. It was where the fallen titans and bad people, wicked people went. So the fallen titans and wicked people went to Tartarus. It was in the underworld in Greek mythology. Now, that makes me think, from what I have found in Scripture, that Ehben and Shaul and the rest of them, Yoshua especially, Yahweh very much especially, do not believe in Greek mythology. They don't hold to that. They don't think that it's true. But here we have a word Tartaru, which means to throw down to Tartarus. Tartarus being a place in the Greek mythology afterlife, the underworld. That makes me wonder, since Ehben, Yoshua, Shaul, all of them were actually Hebrews, were Israelites, were Jewish, Yehudis, they didn't believe in Greek mythology. That was not part of their belief system. This makes me think that the Greek Brit Hadashah, New Testament, New Covenant, is actually not the original. It's actually a copy. It's a translation from an original. Now, personally, I think that there's evidence that The Brit Hadashah, New Covenant, New Testament, or Renewed Covenant would be more accurate way of saying it. I think. Maybe. Anyways, I think there's evidence that it actually was first written in Hebrew, then translated to Aramaic, and then translated to Greek, and then of course from Greek to English or whatever language people have translated it to. So, because that Tartarus is a Greek underworld, from the best I've found out. Now I started researching, trying to find out what the etymology was of the word Tartarus, and I found out that it was uncertain origin. I couldn't find out where the word came from. I just found out that it was a Greek mythological abyss associated with the Greek mythological underworld. But I think that it is referring to an abyss. If you look in Luke chapter 8 verse 31, where the demonic messenger is saying to Yeshua, "Don't send me into the abyss." It's not an exact quote, but it's basically what he's saying. Don't send me into the abyss. I think that this is what it's referring to. It's the same thing. It's the abyss. It's basically the holding place of fallen angelic messengers. And possibly related, see Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 22. But that is the only hell that Peter, in either of his letters, Ehben, is talking about. Is chapter 2, verse 4, Tartaru, to be thrown down to Tartarus, which I think basically just means the abyss. It's from the best I can understand. So, that's Peter going to hell. Now, of course, Tartaru, referring to Tartaros, is one of 3 terms used in Scripture that, one of 4 terms, I'm sorry. One of 4 terms that gets translated as hell. Now, originally, hell meant a hidden place, like a hole in the ground, like a grave, somewhere that you couldn't see. When you go to someone's grave, you can see the headstone. It's the marker showing where the grave is, because if the marker wasn't there, you wouldn't know where the grave was, because it's buried underground. It's a hidden place, and that's what hell is. It's a hidden place. The other 3 terms, besides Tartaros, which has nothing to do with humanity, are Gehenna, which actually means Valley of Hinnom, and it's a really nice park today outside of Jerusalem. It's a valley outside of Jerusalem, Yerushalayim. And it's a really nice park today. It used to be, back in Yeshua's time, it used to be a garbage dump, because I think it was originally Valley of Tophet, and they would sacrifice children there and do very horrible things. In fact, when they did sacrifice children there, Yahweh was very upset about it, and he said, "Why are you doing this? I have not told you to do this. It didn't even enter my mind for you to do this, to burn their children in the fire." So, if you have an idea of someone burning their children in the fire, like say Yahweh's children, the children he has, he says that it's never entered his mind for that to happen. He does not want it. He rebukes it. He rebuked the Israelites for doing that. That's not something he wants. So, the Valley of Hinnom. Then there's also Sheol, which my understanding means the dark unknown, referring to death, because when the Israelites saw that people died, as far as like their personality and who they were, they saw that it was gone. They didn't know what happened to them. As far as they knew, they went into the dark unknown. That's Sheol. Then Hades, of course, if you look at Hades, Hades was also part of the Greek mythology and part of the Greek mythological afterlife, the place where the dead went in Greek mythology. But since the Yehudis or Jews, the Hebrews, the Israelites, Yeshua did not associate with Greek mythology, that was not part of their concept of what happened. Their doctrine, their teachings, their knowing about Yahweh, and Hades was a pagan mythological place. That's another thing that makes me think that it was a translation from previous Aramaic, previous Hebrew. And I think that Hades was actually the Greek equivalent term that was used to translate Sheol. So Hades and Sheol basically just mean the grave. Their death, when somebody's dead, their personality and their identity is gone. All that's left is the vessel, the husk, the body, which starts decaying, but the actual person is no longer there. They've gone into Sheol, they've gone into death, being no more. So that's Sheol and Hades. And then Gehenna, of course, is the garbage dump. Well, it used to be a garbage dump where they would burn trash and really horrible dead criminals, and now it's a park. So really now, if somebody's going to hell, really, it's a walk in the park. And plus they have to go to Jerusalem, which, like, for myself, that would be like thousands of miles away, and that would be a long trip. So unless I'm going to go time traveling to go back to the garbage dump, I would be going to a park. Anyways, so Tarsharu, to be thrown into Tartarus, the Greek mythological underworld. Hope this has been helpful. Hope you've gotten something out of this. Thank you very much for watching. And au revoir, shalom, bon voyage, arrivederci, auf Wiedersehen, guten Tag, guten Nacht, au revoir. Bye.